Hello, dear viewers. Most of us draw inspiration from the world and people around us. Some of us are blessed to be that inspiration to others. One such young woman is with us in the studio today. Our guest today is Shrutilata Singh, a senior specialist network support with Sense International India. Shruti has a Bachelor of Arts, a diploma in physiotherapy, and a certificate in food and nutrition. She has 3 years of working experience as a pediatric physiotherapist in an early intervention center. She has presented papers in national and international conferences. She has participated and contributed as a speaker at the Global Disability Forum and at UN platforms. She is also an executive member of Commonwealth Children and Youth with Disability Network. Now, all of this is an interesting resume for most people. But Shrutilata is special because she is a woman who is deaf-blind. With a disability that few people are aware of, her roster of achievement and contribution reads no differently to ours. And therein lies a tale. Shrutilata, welcome to our studio and to Goa. Would you mind sharing your own...
Hi everyone, my name is Shruti and I am thankful to be able to speak and share today with all.
Would you mind sharing your own personal situation and through that explain to our viewers what is deaf-blindness?
First question. Okay. First, I want to share that some types of deaf-blindness are there, and deaf-blindness itself is a combination of both visual and hearing disability, in which a person has both disability. And it varies from individual to individual. Not everyone has same type of deafblindness, and even the type of deafblindness differs. Like me, having progressive deafblindness, earlier I was able to see and hear much better, but now I can see less than 5% and can hear just sounds, not words. That for others, some have total deafblindness in which they cannot even see or hear anything. That is total deafblindness. And some others still have residual senses, like they may have some vision and no hearing, or vice versa, like some have some hearing and no vision. And there could be some additional disability with that also, like health issues or something. And in my case, so as far as I remember, I actually, my vision and hearing was never normal, and from standard 4th onwards, I was not able to see or hear whatever the teacher was teaching in classroom. Though I studied in mainstream school, because not myself or my family or the community, neither the school were aware about this disability. This was long time back. And so I never got the support I needed back then. I was just sitting in the class, what we say in Hindi, like makhi mana, but I was sitting and not learning anything. And because of which I was not able to even socialize in school. Many people learn more in school by socializing and having friends, but I missed out that opportunity. And was not doing well in studies, so was not learning there. But thankfully, my parents, my whole family is from educated background and was able to help me. And so I passed this as average student. And lot of things I did miss out. And being a girl with deafblindness added to my disability, because gender and disability is something we still not talk about too much, and having both vision and hearing disability, because of which I do not get information. I faced lot of other challenges like in mobility and education. And when I talk about mobility, I want to share that most of the time it becomes very difficult for me to go out of my home alone. So being a girl adds to it, because there is safety concern about safety, and even my family is not ready to let me go out. Then this is the same fate for many other people with deaf blindness in India. They are more or less same, even who have progressive, but many others who have different types of deaf blindness also do not get the support. If awareness is not there, and parents and family members or even community is not able to support them, well, the only thing is we get is sympathy that does not help in any way, but not the support that we need. And when I talk about mobility, I can give example how it affects because of my deaf blindness. Like for example, when I walk on road, I am very much scared of dogs and cows, but being both hearing and visual impaired, how do I know if anyone coming from front is human or dog or cow? Because most of the time I cannot see for upper half of the body part, and I can't even hear if to be sure if they are talking or making sound, because it is, if the person is, if in on my place, if the person is visually impaired, they can understand because of the sound, but I cannot. I have to focus on if they have 4 legs or 2 legs, then find out if it is human or cow. This may sound funny, but this is how I am managing my day-to-day life. And then again, education, now how I managed in school, but I was not able to understand anything. I was able to read books earlier, but because I have progressive deaf blindness, now here the word progressive does not mean progress, but it means that both vision and hearing reduces day by day. So after school, it became difficult for me to read books, so I had to take out large prints for books to be able to read. But before graduation, I had that challenge of choosing between science, commerce and arts also. That was also a part of education that is very important for everyone, because for higher studies we all need to decide what we will do in future, and that mostly depends on what we take for higher education, 11th and 12th standard. Well, I, being deaf-blind, was left with this thing to choose between these 3 subjects, but how would I? Because I needed more support, and that nothing was available. And so in the end, we decided that I take science, but I actually wanted to do arts. But luck was at my side, because there was no English medium art school. So because my family were from science background, they helped. And I was lucky at every turn of life to get the support, but many others in India do not have this reduced support available, because my family is also from educated background, so it was helpful to stay positive also. And I have already shared how deaf blindness are affecting at various stages, and now and earlier I was able to hear when people would speak loudly and repeat it, but now I cannot. So at every stage of life I also need to adapt. Like now, recently I learned sign language, but not signing, I don't need to use sign much for others, but I have to make sure that the other person learn some ways to communicate with me. I can speak well, so I can convey the information, but how do I get the information from others? Deaf-blind people have difficulty in getting the information the way others do, because 95% of what we learn is vision and hearing, and so if a person has both the vision and hearing problem, then the way we receive the information is very much affected. So it is the case with many people, and different people have different communication needs because of their varying degree of impairment. So as I said, in my case I had to adapt, and not just me but my family members, so, and community, everyone had to adapt, and we had to learn different modes of communication. And so deafblindness is not just a disability but means to make adaptations, not just in family but in community also, to make sure that some support is available. If I wouldn't have learned sign language and wouldn't have taught my family members different modes of communication, I would not be getting the information that I need to be able to contribute to the way that everyone else is doing.
You said when you were making your choices around education, your family was able to support and you got support. How are parents, families, and the medical and school system integrated in their knowledge of deaf-blindness, both the diagnosis and the building of a multi-way support system?
Support system. When now we have any disability, whether it is deafblind or any other multiple disability, first of all the parent, it is the parents, family members who get to know that something is amiss with the child, and so it is important that they have to accept and understand it, and then get the necessary intervention. But for that intervention they have to be ready to take to doctor, hospitals also. As in my past experience as pediatric physiotherapist, I noticed that many of the parents were themselves not aware that the children had disability for a long time. Even if they were aware and they had gone to hospital for intervention like for epilepsy or other things, they were, the doctor were not able to recommend them to appropriate centers where they could get further intervention for for any early intervention and or education and anything. So this is why the parents were not able to get information. It is important that all medical hospitals and stuff understand about every disability, not just deafblindness but every disability, because so any family members will visit the hospital first to get diagnosis done, to be sure if vision or hearing issue are there. But what after that, how can they support the person with deafblindness? So it would be good if every hospitals stay connected with organizations, different organizations that support different disability, and once the doctor understands exactly what disability is, like if in the case of deafblindness, if a doctor is able to understand that a person has deafblindness and need necessary intervention, that can be provided by only those educators who are trained in this field. So they should be able to convey this information to the family and give reference of organizations where they can get the intervention. The early this intervention starts for children, better will be their development, overall development in terms of communication, socialization or anything.
So what kind of intervention can a child or a young adult get?
What kind of? In this intervention, like I mentioned about people being total deafblind at a young age. So if they are young, they need to learn tactile mode of communication and sensory integration also. And other than that, they need more opportunity in everything. Like in socialization, many of the family do not allow the children to socialize with others because of the fear that they will be treated differently. but it is important that the children or adults get the opportunity to socialize. It is also one type of intervention that the community accepts them and make adaptations available, and according to the needs there should be some adaptations. For example, if we talk about 10 deafblind adults getting job, then the thing that they will need is the support and accessibility at the workplace. And what kind of accessibility they will need? If they are low vision, then maybe large font or braille or tactile something, so that they can independently explore the workplace. So, and if they get this deaf blindness after working after connecting to a job or something, and then some modes need to be changed. For example, if they were able to see clearly and work on a computer, then maybe they will need some changes, like to learn how to use the magnifier or talkback or something. So even the workplace need to be sensitive and be able to intervene and make adaptations. And in terms of mobility also, so we need to ensure that all the public systems, public transport are fully accessible as per the needs of each individual with deaf blindness, whether they are using wheelchair or visual impaired or hearing impaired, need of sign language. And now about sign language also, it is important that the common people also understand the importance of sign language, because it is not just a language, it is a culture also. And we cannot expect a person who is fully sign language user to speak and share the information, but we have to adapt as per the needs. So intervention is needed at all levels.
You mentioned a lot of areas where intervention is required, and I think that was very clear, also very informative for our viewers. How does deaf blindness impact one's daily life? You talked about mobility, you talked about being able to study, you talked about difficulties at work, and you talked about difficulties in socializing as a child. So for people who have not had your kind of support, how have you seen the impact?
There was one person with total deaf blindness that we got to know about. He was around 16 years old when he was identified, and outside a temple, and so an NGO got to know about him, and they intervened for him and taught him many things, but it was very late. Because of late intervention, he was not even able to dress or bath properly. He had to be taught that from starting. You can imagine how difficult it would be to teach a 16 years old who cannot see or hear anything and knows nothing. And other than that, there had been other with not just deaf blindness but additional disability also. I have seen that for more than 26 years they could not get any support to intervention at early age, and so were not able to move around. And there is one another girl with total deaf blindness who is still not able to go out of her home independently. She always needs parent support, and being a girl, it adds to her difficulty because of safety issues, and her parents are still not ready to let her go out. And there are yet other girls who are not getting proper opportunities for higher education because her family is not supportive, and they also are not so communicative to her, so she cannot understand what their concerns are or what is. And her family being not from educated, they are not, since they are not from educated background, they they are not able to understand the importance of higher education, and since she has just finished 12th and wants to study further, but if she was just blind, she still could have studied in any other colleges because she could still be able to hear. And her elder sister, who is visually impaired, is had able to get admission in a college in Delhi. But how will this girl study? Because she will need a sign language interpreter also, and that sign language interpreter has to sit near her because of low vision. So it is very difficult for her to find opportunity to study further, although she wants to. And in area about activities in daily life also, many get affected. Some are not even able to communicate well. Like there are devices like refreshable braille which can be connected to mobile and laptop and can use communication. There is one boy who has not been trained properly about how that people can be busy with other things. So he has just learned to communicate with others. So and if people do not respond, then he becomes very anxious and keeps texting like see the message, things like that. So they have to be trained at right time about people and everything, because the world is mostly limited to fingertips. So early intervention and at the right time is very important.
Shruti, how many people in India suffer from deaf blindness?
As of now, no official data is available, but I work in SANS International India, which has been working since 1997, and through the disaggregated data that after some survey, it is estimated that around 5 lakh people with deaf blindness reside in India, all over India. But till date, in 25 years, SANS India has been able to reach out to about 80,000 people with deaf blindness, children and adults with deaf blindness.
So what does SENSE International India do when you say it has been able to reach out? What does the organization do? When you say that SENSE International India has been able to reach out to people, what exactly does the organization do?
Okay. SENSE India is the first and only national level organization that is working for people with deaf blindness. And our main objective is to identify and rehabilitate people with deaf blindness. Earlier, when SENSE was started, our director Akhil sir realized that it is not possible to reach out to all over India if they stay at only one place. Like our center is for one place only. So our approach is partnership that we are doing, in which we are reaching out to different states, and we partner with some NGOs. Like in Goa, we have partners with Caritas organization, and so currently we have reached 23 states and more than 60 partners in these 25 years. And what we do is build the partner organizations capacity, and also local government officials with whom we sensitize and train. After training the educators, they do field work and identify people with deaf blindness, so new children and adults, and give the intervention as per the need. And we also train samagri shiksha and medical officers for different things. And so our target for identification and rehabilitation by these things through partnership approach only, and this partnership has to be with NGOs and government officials and other disabled people organizations also.
Okay, now you talked about working with local government. What systemic and legal challenges do people with deaf blindness face?
Well, there are a lot of things that I can share in this regard, because you must be aware that revised act came in 2016. It and before that the act has only 7 disability mentioned in it, but deafblindness was not mentioned there. And because of sustained advocacy by Sons India, now the revised act to Rights for Person with Disability Act 2016 has deafblindness in it under the multiple disability. So now we have the support of law, and before that it was very difficult, and yet but this act is yet to be implemented properly. And let me give you one example. My own elder brother, who is also having progressive deafblindness, and in year 2012 when he completed electrical engineering, he gave exams for competitive exams for many reputed government jobs. He is very talented, but although he cleared most of the exams, he was not allowed to join. And for one job in Ahmedabad, that was BSNL, when they did not allow, we decided to take it to court with support of NGO. But this was in 2013, and we did not had the support of law, simply because at that time the law did not had recognized deafblindness as the disability. So the impact was that he lost that fight, but thankfully later he got a good job in Central Bank of India. So, and till date he is working there. And other people are also facing more or less the same problem. Even in education, now when reservation is there for many of people with disability, where are people with deafblindness? We hear very less about people with deafblindness getting government job, simply because even the examination system is not accessible to them. If they have to write their exams, then they need some different types of support. So we need some changes in legal level, like for examination. The rules only mention that people with visual impairment can get scribe, and that also has some rules, but it only gives some more extra time to finish the exam. But if you say a person with deafblindness and try to understand their needs, you will understand that they need even more time than others. Recently we had one example, and one person with total deafblindness had to go for first semester BA exams through Open University. But since he was total deafblind, he needed some tactile sign language support, and that person could not write for him, so he had to use 2 person. That was, one could do the writing work, but other had to do tactile sign language interpretation. But these are not in the rules, and we are still trying to get it legally. He had to fight to get this support. And even at lot of policies level, we are at Sons India are still trying to get necessary support for people with deafblindness, because something comes every day, like some guidelines and new policies for inclusion of people with disability, but it somehow lacks support for people with deafblindness, which we are trying to address by making people with deafblindness themselves understand their needs and how they can get the support, what changes needs needed.
Is this a battle that each person who is affected by deafblindness needs to take up, or is there somewhere that they can reach out to at every stage of education or job search, things like that?
Support. First of all those officials and the people responsible for these guidelines and this those who are responsible for providing support need to be aware about what deaf blindness is and what intervention they need, because there are times when many of the people with deaf blindness do not understand that they have this disability. They may have never heard it and may feel like they are the only one. So when they have to get any support, for example, I shared about medical hospitals. If the person need to get support in disability certificate, then it is better the hospital understands, medical staff understand what disability it is, and if in case of education they are trying to get any support, then how it can be done. Here I would like to share an example. When I was trying to give my exams for certificate in food and nutrition, I was not able to read questions with my ears. Earlier when I was doing BA, I was able to read it, and because I lost my vision after that, I could not read it. So I had to get permission to use digital magnifier, but so I went to the center, regional center, to ask if I could get it, and they said that I need to get doctor's written
certificate
agreement that I need it. But when I went to hospital, the doctor in question was not ready to give me that, and so I was wondering what to do. But thankfully the head of the hospital knew me and my disability, so he immediately called that doctor and requested her to make that agreement, and so after that I was able to give my exams. But what if that doctor, the head of the department, did not knew my disability and was not ready? So my suggestion is that every responsible centers, medical officer or education department, and everyone should understand about disability and the needs of people with disability, because somehow or the other every department is interlinked, and they have to make sure that the information is exchanged among themselves, and it reaches the person with disability somehow. If he cannot get it done, then at least the community or organization should be able to. But for this, he needs to that person with deaf blindness needs to be connected with organization or something. But what if they are not connected? There should be some systemic ways to get the information, and suppose if this case reaches some place, like in case of education examination, if the person is not able to do and not able to raise his voice and then gets depressed, but those who have observed should be able to raise for them. So I said that awareness about deaf blindness is very important, not just for family members of people with deaf blindness, but in the community as a whole.
So Sense International is partnering with Caritas in Goa. What kind of advocacy or activities do you plan to undertake?
I already shared that we advocated for inclusion of deaf blindness in the act itself. And apart from that, we are advocating for inclusion of people with deaf blindness in almost every area. Like in education, we want inclusive education, and we don't want the student with deaf blindness to just sit in class, but get the support to be able to get education. Like some interpreter or educator, special educators should sit with them in mainstream and be able to support it. And we had been advocating for appropriate disability certificate. Although deaf blindness is now recognized under multiple disability, it is still not a distinct disability, and it is not giving us the identity that we need. And so Sons India advocates for identity also, that is appropriate certificate, a certificate that mentions the exact disability that a person has. Like it is, if it is and multiple disability, there should be a bracket under which it should write deaf blindness. If there is any other combination of two disability, it should be mentioned, because without that we cannot prove our identity, what intervention we need. And at local level also we are partnering with Anganwadi and Samagra Shiksha and different officials, and through partner organization we train the local officials. Like here in Goa we train Anganwadi people and Samagra Shiksha educators and medical officers about deaf blindness, and to how to rehabilitate, how to give necessary intervention as per the need. So that different areas we are trying. Even in sports we are trying to get inclusion, because so due to lack of identification of deaf blindness, even in sports people with deaf blindness has to compete in either with blind category or deaf, or sometimes with intellectual disability. But because of this they are not able to perform well, because the support that is available is not as per the need for people with deaf blindness.
Any other areas of inclusion? She just mentioned sports. Any other areas of inclusion?
Like healthcare also, and even in public transport there should accessibility is needed, and accessibility itself here is big topic, that it should be need based accessibility support available, whether it is public area or any company buildings and everything. We are advocating for all this, and apart from organs area for yes, and for participation in decision making at policy level also we are trying to intervene, because nowadays you can see that people with disability are trying to participate in elections and at panchayat level, but how many people with deaf blindness are there? Until yet we have not yet heard of, but we are trying to make sure that people with deaf blindness are also included in decision making. Like in policy level, when government say that they are including people with disability, they don't actually include all 21 disabilities, and if they are including, this should also include people with deaf blindness.
Shruti, you've gone through a lot, you see a lot. What is your own inspiration? What drives you to soldier on despite your own challenges and to fight for others?
Inspiration to fight for others. Well, I drew a lot of inspiration from many people, not just one. First of all, it is my parents who keep guiding, supporting me. But since the time I connected to Sons India for advocacy, from 2020 I started interacting with other people with deaf blindness. So before that I still used to think at that time that I was the only one, and even though I knew that there are people like me, but I didn't know that I was the most lucky one. But now I see that there are others who still need support to do better, and my inspiration is other people with deaf blindness, especially the girls. There are girls who can dance so better and do many of the artwork that I cannot do. There are still others who are very active in sports, but the information does not reach others, and it makes me feel bad if I see a talented young person with deaf blindness who is not able to get the support and be able to do better, because it makes me feel like his or her talent will go waste. because even family is not understanding, and just to make sure that they get all the information, I keep trying to make all the information accessible. For example, we started online meetings for people with deaf blindness, but it was not an easy thing. We had to make sure that first we tried to reach out to support person, not to make the meeting mostly for them. But it was a challenge because most of the time many of the people with deaf blindness did not have the support person. So at the end decided that we will do meeting with people with deaf blindness directly, but it was online. So it was again a challenge, and we tried to approach different the methods like transcription, sign language, and in language translation, and got to know more about others. So now I encourage others to also do what I can do, because through my work and through what I have seen, I can say that there is nothing impossible, and just to make things possible, it is important that we understand our needs first, our rights first, and why we need it. Then only we will be able to raise our voice. And if I have learnt and able to work, then others can also. So I keep trying to make sure that others get the information and be able to do things.
Is there a message that you have directly for our viewers?
Short and simple message that people should not shy away from making adaptations, because I have heard that many people say that learning sign language is difficult or communication is difficult, we cannot talk to him. But through my experience, I have learned only one thing, that is communication is not difficult. It is only difficult to make the other person make some adaptations. I am able to freely communicate with many people through different modes of communication. If I can do it, then others can do it, and everyone should understand every type of disability and be ready to support. It is not the sympathy we need, but rather the empathy.
Thank you.
And
Shruti.
I would like to end with our favorite quote from Helen Keller, that is, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. So everyone should do it together, not alone.
That's a wonderful message. Thank you, Shruti, for giving us the privilege of an interview with you, and for showing us how to be a light in darkness.
And I am thanking for this opportunity to be able to share. I hope others also understand and find it useful.
Not at all. I'm sure our viewers will. We wish you the very best for your journey ahead as you try to facilitate a more equal world. Omita, you've been Shrutilata's companion for almost 2 years now. You work as her interpreter and as her friend. Can you demonstrate to us the tactile sign language that she uses?
Sure. As Shruti had said that she used different methods. So this tactile sign language is also one of the communication mode which mainly used by total deafblind. So in this, what we do is whatever I was using was visual sign language, because whatever I sign, she received through vision. But in this tactile, whatever sign will be same. Whatever I sign with her will remain same.
Okay.
But the way they receive is different.
Through touch.
So, before it was through vision. Now I am signing. Her hand is over my hand and exploring what I am signing below her hand. So this is how they receive through touch.
Okay.
This is called tactile sign language.
Okay. So could you show us something? We'll zoom into your hands.
This time I will only sign, and Shruti will speak what I am signing.
That's something that we haven't done in the studios before. Brought you a completely sensory experience. We live our daily lives with all of our senses intact, and we get so much from the world around us. But here today we have one of the best possible examples of a life fully and well lived with so many senses, less than what they would like them to be. There is so much that we have to be grateful for, and so much that we have to pay forward.